You can always ask Racquel a question by sending her an email to rmludaway@kw.com. Now, once again, here's Racquel.
Well, welcome back. You're listening to the Racquel Ludaway Show, Real Talk, Real Solutions on 98.9 FM, The Answer. I'm your host, Racquel Ludaway, real estate consultant with Keller Williams Capital Partners. And I'm here today talking with Michael Isaacs and Adam Neff with First Choice Loan Services about buying versus renting. And we've been talking about a lot of great things for you to consider when you're trying to make the decision whether or not you'd like to buy a home versus renting a home. There's lots of things to take into consideration. And one of the things I really like is the return on investment, something that we, just kind of touched on a little bit. But Michael, can you tell me a little bit more about something that we should really consider when we're thinking about the return on investment or the cost of waiting when you are, waiting on buying a home, and how you may be losing that return on investment?
Sure, absolutely, Racquel. So I think timing is really important in the renting versus buying decision. So there's a couple things that we take into account, really both for return on investment and also the cost of waiting. Today, one of the things I like to talk to a lot of potential buyers about is negotiating power. And you would probably know this better than I would because this is your business. You face this every single day, but today, as the weather changes, as we approach winter and the holiday season, I think that the people that have their homes on the market today are people that, for one reason or another, really are a little bit more desperate and have to sell their homes in the current market. Otherwise, they'd probably wait till the springtime, when I think most people know that sellers know that they're going to get a better deal and probably get more money for their house. So I think there's some negotiating power right here for people who jump into the market today and buy a house, during the winter. And I think that could be as much as 5% off the purchase price. So if you're buying a $300,000 house, if you have some negotiating power and you can buy now, if you don't have to worry about pulling your kids out of one school and putting them in another school, and you don't have to wait until the spring to buy a house, I think there's an opportunity there. And that's a cost of waiting, because if you wait until the spring, you may give up that 5% discount. Additionally,
or you might pay more.
Or you might pay more, exactly.
Because typically in the spring and the summertime, you have more competition. So that means you might be going against, multiple people on a particular property, and then you might have to pay more for the property in order to win the bid.
Exactly. So whether it's a discount situation or you're going to pay more in the springtime, either way, we're talking about potentially as much as 5 or 10%, and that's very significant when you're considering buying versus renting and the timing of that. Additionally, we talk a lot about appreciation. We've seen the homes appreciate just in central Ohio anywhere from 3 to 5% over the past year. And the expectation is somewhere between 2 to 3% really over the next couple of years. And then we talked about interest rates and a potential increase in interest rates. When you add all of that up, just imagine you're buying a $300,000 house and you buy in the winter versus the summer or the spring, assuming that you got a 5% discount or you paid 5% less buying now, that could be as much as $15,000 off the price of a house. Additionally, if interest rates go up, let's say on average 2% over the next 5 years, that's an average of $5,400 per year, and interest expense times 5 years is another $27,000 that you'll pay in interest by taking on a higher rate mortgage somewhere between now and the next 5 years. In addition to that, if we look at appreciation of almost 2% a year, an average of 2% a year over the next 5 years, that's another 10%. If you add all of those up, that's $72,000 over 5 years that you're going to pay more for a house if you wait to buy as opposed to buying right now. And if you take a lot of those same numbers and you look at your return on investment, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that one of the best parts about investing in real estate is the leverage factor. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're buying a $300,000 house. Typically, you're going to put down 5 or 10%. Some people will put down as much as 20%, but the typical buyer puts down about 10% on a $300,000 house. So your investment is really $30,000, not $300,000. That's $30,000 that you otherwise would have put into the stock market and expected to get some sort of a return, or the bond market, or some type of mutual fund. So your investment is $30,000. However, your appreciation let's say that's 2% a year, is based on a $300,000 house. So if your home appreciates 2% a year over 5 years, or 10% over that same 5-year period, that's $30,000 in appreciation. If you're able to buy a house over in the wintertime and save another 5%, that's another $15,000. And so your total return on investment, the way we look at that, is $45,000. So you put down $30,000, you got back $45,000 in increased value in that property. That's 150% return, or 30% a year for that investment. Compare that to whether you put your money in the stock market, in a mutual fund, or anywhere else. It's an incredible return. So whether you're looking at the cost of waiting or you're considering the return on investment, again, I think when you analyze the difference between buying and renting, especially right now, especially in the wintertime, again, I think buying comes out on top.
Right. And I think people should stop shopping at the malls right now and call your real estate agent, and let's talk about buying a house here, because I think that window of opportunity, to purchase at a good price, because the recent reports came out for the Columbus Board of Realtors, or the Columbus Realtors, and it says that from the average sales price right now is $183,000, and that's up 5.3% from last year. So, now is a great time for a seller to sell. The prices are continuing to go up. So you don't want to wait until, these prices go to their maximum level and then you try to buy, because that impacts your affordability and the type of home that you can actually get. So there's so many reasons why buying now during this time period is such a good thing to consider. And there is a major cost of waiting if you decide to do that. There's an impact there. So that's very great information. And so we did talk about, you guys think that the interest rates are going up, and we did talk about the consumer confidence right now in the housing market. Do you think people are just gun shy? They're just not, where do you think our consumer confidence is going to head?
They're probably a little gun shy right now. I said earlier, rightfully so.
Right.
A lot of bad stuff happened in the real estate and mortgage world for a number of years that was left unchecked, that can't happen. Well, it can't really happen anymore, at least unchecked. So people who are maybe a little bit timid need to get over that fear. Go to someone they trust, go to someone that they like yourself, like us, hopefully, and understand the full scope of what the problem was if they have concerns, and not just listen, to the local news, which is oftentimes, they're more for effect than anything else. And like I said, basically get an expert, get a professional's opinion as to, here's your situation. Do you think you'd be better in a situation over here? Do you think it'd be better to be going to the mall and buying stuff that's going to go out of style in 3 years, that you're going to outgrow, that you're going to throw in the trash can, versus making a big financial investment in something that can really pay off in dividends down the road, something that could help you finance other investments, your kids' college, whatever, the case, pay off some of your debt down the road,
right? Things
like that.
Well, we're almost going to have to go to a break, but I just have one last question. Some people think that it costs more money to be in a home. They think that it's going to be more expensive. And if they, from apples to apples, if it's $800 that they're paying in rent versus an $800 mortgage payment, that the expenses of owning a home are going to be greater. What would you say to someone who had that type of thought process?
Well, look, you're probably going to pay more in utilities, to heat and cool a home and things like that. But everything in life comes with some kind of sacrifice. And it's like any investment. You have to decide, okay, am I going to buy that $5 cup of coffee every morning for the next month? Or is that another $80 or $100 I could be spending toward an actual investment where I'm going to see that return on the investment? So I think it's maybe a little overstated how much disparity there will be versus, owning versus renting. But again, that's why we like when we have a client come in to look at the full scope and say, okay, let's look at how much each month your payment is going to be and make sure you're comfortable with that. Don't buy that $1 million house if you're afraid that we're going to have a winter like last year and your heating bill is going to go up. Let's look at it from all scenarios.
Right. So as we go into the break, I want to make sure that you come back, because I'm going to play a little devil's advocate, and we're going to talk about, the flip side of that. When is it a good time not to buy instead of renting? Sometimes renting is a good option, and we'll talk about that. So you're listening to the Racquel Ludaway Show, Real Talk, Real Solutions on 98.9 FM, The Answer, and we will be right back from break. Be sure to tune back in.